100% bonus depreciation looks like it's on its way back. So if you are a high income earner and you're looking to get into short-term rentals, specifically Airbnbs, for the tax savings and the cash flow, this is super important to understand. So let's do a quick summary of what this means and then go through a history lesson of how we actually got here. So the 30-second summary is 100% bonus depreciation, according to Donald Trump, is returning. It's not a matter of if, but when. There are 3 separate occasions that he's mentioned this since early January. It's a bipartisan support bill anyway, but specifically he does have influence over the House of Representatives and he has a Senate majority with the Republican Party. So what does this mean? If you buy $1 million home, roughly most bonus depreciation amounts comes back between 22 to 38% of the total purchase price. So let's say on this example, somewhere right in the middle, $300,000 of bonus depreciation on $1 million property. Means that this year, if you close on this home after January 20th of this year, that would result in a $300,000 offset. So what's important to understand is the timeline and what all this means and how all this has come together. So let's specifically start with a really good summary of how we got here. So in 2002, bonus depreciation was first enacted, and then over time, different rates and different amounts were applied on the maximum amount that you could take. So specifically, something changed aggressively between 2017, 2018, and then 2019. The big item here was that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that Donald Trump's regime passed back in 2018 offered 100% bonus depreciation between the dates of 2018 through 2022. Now, if you fast forward to 2017, that was the period where this conversation began, and then 2018 was when everything went into effect. Now, there was repeal or reform on this bill, and part of that bill included what we know today as the stair-stepping or phase-out rule, which indicated that after 2022, starting in January 1 of 2023, we would see a 20% incremental downshift every year in the maximum amount of bonus depreciation that you could take. So we are currently in 2025 sitting at this 40% bonus depreciation amount. Now, in January of 2024, there was another bill that was successfully passed, and this was passed in the House of Representatives, and it meant to basically reform and repeal the specific item, among other items, of the stair-stepping down 20% per year, year over year. And it was passed with overwhelming support in the House of Representatives. However, when it got to the Senate, it did not get approved. So we come back to this year, and specifically we go off the context of Donald Trump basically stating what was going to be part of his tax plan and his tax reform, which this tweet does a really, really good job of breaking down. This gentleman highlights Trump's approach and how he wants to shift back to 100% bonus depreciation. So a few months later, now in January, February, and March, we hear and we reference the moments when Donald Trump highlights back in January at the World Economic Forum, at a Flint Institute address, and then during his State of the Union address recently in March. You can see, and this gentleman does a great breakdown, Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum, timestamp is there. Donald Trump at the Flint Institute gathering here, this is in February. And then finally, most recently, barely a couple weeks ago, his presidential address to Congress. So what does this mean? Well, this bill now has an opportunity to be passed. So we reference our favorite age-old Khan Academy. I know all you Calculus 1, Calculus 2 people out here know what I'm talking about when we pull up Khan. This got me through college. Let's go. There are different routes that a bill can get passed. So if you want context on one of the 2 ways that this bill can start its process all over again and then get passed, this is a good refresher. But basically, once the House of Representatives or the Senate, it'll most likely be the House, reintroduces this exact same bill, again, the one that passed with an overwhelming majority in the House of Representatives and then needs to get to the Senate, there should be bipartisan support on this, and Trump influencing along with the Republican Party those types of votes. It should be a not when, but not if, rather, but when. So how will this ultimately affect the market? I think the most important thing to get clear on here is there are a lot of people who are sidelined right now, specifically buyers. Interest rates are very, very high, so the only people who are really doing much volume in terms of buying homes, specifically in the single-family market, short-term rentals, They are the ones who know and understand creative finance. So once we get a market shifting update like this that will influence more buyers to see more incentive to actually buy homes, well, those people are going to be coming into a market along with thousands of other buyers who are now recognizing there are benefits to do deals this year. Now, sellers will immediately have a larger pool of buyers, and then just simple supply and demand. There is more demand, there are more buyers, there's only limited supply. There will be a little bit of a shock, and there will be more buyers now competing with other buyers. So what does this likely mean for you? Well, this is not financial advice, not legal advice, not tax advice. What I recognize is the bonus depreciation amount doesn't necessarily affect the total amount of depreciation that I take. It just affects the schedule on when. So I know that for the next 5 years, I am going to be a high income earner. I am going to be buying real estate for the purpose of offsetting as much of my tax bill legally as possible. Therefore, it doesn't matter how much real estate I end up buying. The depreciation still gets allocated somewhere along a 5-year schedule. What is more ideal is if 100% of the total depreciation amount per a cost segregation study, let's say in the example, 30% of $1 million purchase price can get accelerated to year one. Is this more leveraged? Absolutely. If this is not the case, where I'm still at a 40% of that total amount this year, the aggregate remainder amount still gets spread over years 2 through 5, and there is still heavy-duty advantages for me. It's not going to change my approach to buying real estate. It just changes how much today depreciation I get and how much comes in years 2 through 5. So with all this good news and all this good market shifting updates, I think the time to be buying real estate specifically is now, especially if you're focusing on doing short-term rentals, and especially if you want to get the property live well before your May, June, July, August peak seasons, which summer is typically going to be the peak season for most short-term rental hosts who launch their home. You don't want to wait until the end of the year. You don't want to wait 3, 4, or 5 months to wait for this news to come through and then be one of many buyers who try to jam in a purchase or multiple purchases Q3, Q4 towards the end of the year. It makes it harder for you to get your material participation in, which I talk about in another video. So if you're one of those high income earners who make over $400,000 per year, you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the bonus depreciation items to go through. I recognize that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And Trump has been very, very adamant on pushing this through. I've compiled all of these links and these resources into a Google Doc beneath this video. And if you want to check that out, in addition to clicking the other link somewhere around this video to actually schedule a call with us, do your research, do your own diligence, and then decide, is short-term rental investing right for you? I think now is a great time, and we have even more incentive coming down the pipeline. So go ahead and click the link around the video if all this makes sense. Schedule a call with the team, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.